Hmm. It's fun watching people file in the stream chat channel. It's almost like watching all of you file in class. You and your custom emotes. As is tradition. I mean, what's the point of being a professor if I'm not the last one to show up to class? You expect me to be, like, well prepared and just show up 10 minutes early and have to fret about getting everything ready? How are we all doing today? Oh, that's good. Glad you're feeling better. I had to run out to the grocery store in between classes today, and it wasn't nearly as bad as it has been. Fairly surprised. There was meat, there was fruit, there was veggies. About the only thing that was missing off the shelves really was pasta and flour. Everybody's stocking up on non-perishables, it seems. I forgot to look. I didn't even think to look for toilet paper. My goal was to get in and get out as quickly as possible. Wouldn't surprise me. People seem to be hoarding interesting things. Alrighty, 3 o'clock. Let's slowly kill that. Alright. So, I suppose we can get going. Some amazing hype music. Can we hear me now? Okay, something really weird's going on here with my my setup. Let me do this. So I will add over here. Nope, that's double meat. We don't want double meat. All right. Can we all still hear me okay? Yeah. I somehow managed to screw up my panel, my main panel. So my apologies. And yeah, I guess that's what went wrong this morning. But yeah, so we're going to talk about VPN today. And we are going to, I assume nobody heard anything I just said. They just saw me do that. So about half the lecture would be my guess, and then I've got some group stuff for you guys to do at the very end. It is due Saturday. So again, normally what we would do is we would do this in class. I'd walk around helping you. Yes, it does. It stands for Virtual Private Network. But basically, I've given you guys a couple extra days to get something which should only take you, 20 minutes or something like that. So, but yeah, so the plan then for today is we're going to do this, and kind of like last time, I'll idle in the Discord channel just in case if, come on, yeah, let's be in this one. Okay, cool. I will idle in the Discord chat. If anybody has any questions about lab stuff, and so on and so forth. But other than that, we will talk about virtual private networks. So, got a couple videos here. Yes, nice wall of pain. So first, has to be one of my favorite GIFs that I've ever seen. Somebody hacking at Best Buy or maybe Circuit City, can't really tell. But we're trying to prevent this from happening. So of course, to start us out, we have to get in the mood. Let's get some mood music going here.
Hackers penetrate and ravage delicate, private, and publicly owned computer systems, infecting them with viruses and stealing materials for their own ends. These people,
Mr. Richard Gill, your hacker enemy #1, man.
Thank you, Mr.
You're a
Gill.
boner.
Yo, showtime, showtime!
What's going on?
4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to our show, Hack the Planet.
Hack the planet!
And for those late night hacks, Dope Cola, the soft drink of the elite hacker.
Who are these guys?
It's Razor and Blade.
Find a payphone in a remote loop.
Razor and Blade.
That's right, this is a payphone.
Don't ask. As you can see, this is just a simple micro cassette recorder. Hook it up to the phone and drop in $5 in quarters.
Record the tones that the coins make, and hang up and get your money back.
And never again pay for a service that would be dirt cheap.
If it weren't run by a bunch of profiteering gluttons.
Remember, hacking is more than just a crime. It's a survival trait.
Yes. Good stuff. And then, as an addendum, gotta have another one. Of course.
So here's the deal. The chosen contest, to hassle Secret Service agent Richard Gill and get one back for Joey.
Absolutely necessary
Our
for any...
decisions are final by a vote of 2-1. No appeals.
The duel will last until we declare a winner.
Use only the dial-ups, access codes, and passwords in your collection. Can't ask for any help from us.
Talking to me?
Any questions?
Yeah. Who's gonna notify his next of kin?
Everybody needs a tactical keyboard. I mean, how else do you hack without it? I love how they probably just told the other guy to, play around with your screwdriver, touch this hardware device and do stuff. But great movie. 90s era classic. 90s? Yeah, late 90s, I think. Anyway, so yeah, we're going to talk about how to prevent these nefarious hackers from getting into our systems today. So we're mainly looking at VPNs, but we're going to talk about them in terms of both Windows and Linux. So I'm going to basically do 2 demos where we set up Windows VPN, and it's not going to work just because of the way, I'm not going to go through the firewall settings for that. And then OpenVPN, which is going to work because, yeah, I'm going to put the extra effort into that one. So here we have a figure. I assume you're all familiar with VPN by now. You have that little client on your computer, whether it's Pulse Secure or, whichever client that you need. You plug in an IP address or a domain name, and then you connect to some remote network, right? So you connect to remote.ccs.oakland.edu, then you're on the school network. So what's happening is that your computer traffic is getting encrypted, and it's being sent directly to the school network. So basically you have effectively a virtual, it's like you're virtually on this network. What's happening is everything is being encrypted, and it's being handled through this tunnel connection, basically. Traditionally, your packets from your computer get sent to your internet provider. There's nothing encrypted, so your ISP can see everything that you're doing. Your traffic, your origin, where your computer is located can be sniffed. People can figure this out. And basically, anybody can see this. Now, if you're at home, it doesn't necessarily matter as much, right? You're on your home network. You don't necessarily care, if people are snooping on your traffic or not. More than likely, you're not doing anything that needs to be worried about. However, if you are outside, maybe you're away from your home network, time and time again, I've recommended connect to the school VPN at minimum, set up your own VPN at home, something like that. Reason being is that your traffic from your computer onwards becomes encrypted. Nobody can break into that except for whoever is running your VPN, right? Like if I'm connected to a VPN, to the school VPN, for instance, the people in charge of the VPN servers, I'm not sure if it's probably UTS or in charge of the school-wide one, but they can see the traffic, right? Because that's their network that they're managing. You're connecting to it. The difference here is that your ISP, anybody in between you and your VPN network, nobody can see what's going on. All the packets are encrypted, and there, in theory, isn't a good way to break into that. I'm sure with enough time and effort, it could be broken into, but it's one of the best things that you can do to stay safe on the internet. So the difference here, though, is that your ISP knows that you are connected. Okay, so there is knowledge that you are connected to a particular VPN network, but you can't get inside that. So I could be tunneled into, any of those VPN services that all the famous YouTubers advertise, right? Connect to Norway or England or anywhere in the world, basically, where these are. You know that I'm connecting to these networks, but you don't know what I'm doing on them. Right, so usually VPNs are a pretty good way to hide your tracks, to stay safe, stay private, pretend like you're in another country, for instance, too. So there's lots of good reasons to use a VPN. Honestly, more or less, it's always good to be on a secured network rather than an unsecure one. Michigan also made it legal for ISPs to sell your traffic history to third parties. Yeah, that's a nice point, too. So if your ISPs knows what you're doing, they can sell that to third parties such as advertisers and whatnot. So yeah, that was a fun one that I more or less intentionally forgot about because it pains me to think of. But yeah, there we go. So what a VPN is, and again, virtual private network. This is a private line of communication on a public channel, right? So if you could think of it if you want to go back to the 80s, if anybody has any idea what a party line is, it's basically N people can share a telephone conversation, whereas a direct one-to-one call would be a more private line. Of course, you could have somebody eavesdropping too, possibly. But again, if you go to a, let's assume the quarantine gets lifted at some point, you go to Starbucks, go to a coffee shop, go to a pizza place or McDonald's or anything like that, you're on their Wi-Fi, anybody on that network can sniff your traffic, right? I'm assuming the majority of you probably have taken the cybersecurity class or have at least heard about some of the tools like Wireshark. We've talked about them in this class too, but packets are just up in the air, ready to be sniffed by anybody. And if you have enough time and patience, you can break into them, into these packets, right? So first thing we're going to look at here is Firesheep. So I want to say that we talked about this last semester. I'm getting old, effectively becoming a 35-year-old boomer now. But this is always a good thing to remind people about. So Firesheep is a browser extension for Firefox. I haven't seen it built for Chrome or anything else like that. But what this is, it's a packet sniffer that acts as an extension. So anybody could install this extension and they could sniff traffic from whatever public network you're on. And if the website in question that somebody's communicating with is not encrypted, for instance, they're only using cookies, they're not using SSL or anything like that, I could very easily figure out your login credentials, or I could take over your PHP session. So there's very easy ways to hijack internet traffic if a site is not secure. More or less these days, most sites that require username and password have that HTTPS protocol running, right? So they're using secure socket layers, but not everybody does. So it's possible to see this. So I've got a video here. This was published in 2010. And the question for you all, while we watch it, is this still relevant? So I'm going to zip it ahead to 150. You're more than welcome to watch the whole thing. You can tell it's an older video because we have a nice square resolution here. Time did I say it was? 150? Let's go about right there. Exactly at 150. Perfect. Yeah, this video is absolutely wonderful to watch. Again, 2010, so websites were not, these popular websites were not as secure back then, but still, this is something you have to be concerned with, especially if you're a web developer.
In this demo, I'm going to use two browsers. These browsers will represent two different machines. These browsers are running on the same computer for this demo, but we have tested this in real life in the lab on separate machines, both on a hub as well as on a wireless network, and have achieved the same results.
Yeah, I just noticed that. Let me see if there's anything I can do about that. I think we are at max. I don't remember this being super quiet. Although my headset's super quiet too. Yeah, it's all the way up. Yeah, I think I'm fine. It's the video that's the problem. I could send you the link. It's also in the slides. Yeah, so let's do that. So I will play it. You can mute me if you want. I'll just drop it in the chat here.
User's machine logging into a website. Firefox will represent the attacker. You can see we've got Firesheep installed, and I'll go ahead and start capturing. Let's switch over to Safari. Let's make sure that Safari doesn't know who I am, so we'll go to Twitter real quick. And you can see I am not logged in. Let's also verify that the attacker is not logged in. And you can see the attacker is also not logged in. So now, back at the user PC, I'll go ahead and log into my account on Twitter. So here we are in my profile, my background, my friends, people I'm following. And let's go check out the attacker's machine. The attacker now has a little indicator here showing that I've accessed Twitter. This doesn't just represent the fact that I accessed Twitter, this represents the fact that the attacker's machine now has a copy of my session key and my cookie. And the only thing that I have to do as an attacker to take over this session is simply double click. Now you can see, as the attacker, I am logged in as the user. I have access to everything the user had access to in the profile. I can change the password, I can add friends, I can remove friends. And just like that, I've captured that session. Now, it doesn't just work for Twitter. This will work for anything that session key and that cookie is passed in plain text. For something scary, I want to show you Amazon. So we'll go
And
ahead
that's
and
what
sign in
Amazon
with my
used to look
account.
like.
And you can see that Amazon recognizes me. You can see up here that we are in an SSL session. We authenticated in an SSL session. We are still in an SSL session. And if we look over here, we don't have any indication that the attacker knows who I am. However, if I browse and go to books, we're no longer in an HTTP session. And that means that my credentials, although my credentials haven't been passed, my session key has. And sure enough, the attacker has a copy of that key and that cookie. And sure enough, they're now logged in as me. Now there are some saving graces. In the case of Amazon, if I go to actually check out, it will ask me for my password again unless I've signed up for one-click purchasing. So that thwarts the attack here, but there still could be some personal information such as wish lists or items in the cart or other such things that would be compromised at this point. There is one scary element that we found from some of the research that we've done at NovCon. If we sign into live.com,
This is a blast from
which
the
is
past.
Hotmail, Windows Live Mail, you can see I'm logged in. Currently, Dave Smith. I can send an email. That's great. Go back to live. Jump over. The attacker saw the same thing. In this case, the scripts couldn't pull my name out, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because I'm still logged in as myself. So now the attacker has compromised the cookie. If I were to sign out, that should cancel the cookie both on my machine and should cancel the session key on the server. But in the case of live.com, that cookie is still valid, and the attacker can go on using my account while the whole time I've been logged out. So now that we know the problem, what can we do about it? Whenever possible, use a VPN when connecting remotely.
Still valid.
Specifically for work users, if you're connecting from a coffee shop or a hotel back to your work network, make sure that you're using a VPN so that all of your traffic flows through that encrypted pipe and not out in public view. Whenever possible, use browser extensions like HTTPS Everywhere or Force TLS. These extensions force you to use the secure versions of services if it knows about it and if they're available. For instance, Google, it would force you to use the encrypted versions of Google services instead of the standard HTTP URLs. Limit your exposure to untrusted networks. If you don't need to access your Facebook account from the coffee shop, then anybody driving down the road.
So basically the rest of it's everything we've been talking about, aside from some of these other extensions. Yeah, so that is nice. Chrome is baking a lot of this in. So I like showing this, because again, it's old, but it's good for two things. So one, it will hopefully hammer the point home, that I've been using my little sledgehammer and my giant nail here to bash into you guys, but basically your traffic is not secure once you leave your home network, right? Make sure that you are protecting yourselves and that people that you know who are doing business outside of work, like if you're a sysadmin, make sure that they're going out and they're using their VPNs. I can't tell you how many stories that I remember from when I worked where people would go to, on a business trip, they'd go to a hotel and, oh crap, my credit card's been stolen because I logged onto the hotel network and I tried to buy something on a random website. Well, it's very easy to sniff traffic if you're on a hotel network, especially if it's not encrypted or there's not a password protection on it or anything like that if you're at a hotel. Yes, cybercrime can still be very easy. The point is to minimize the low-hanging fruit. So again, everything that I'm showing you, this is basically anything that a person with minimal technical knowledge can use. I can install Firesheep and click a button. Anybody can do that. Where you're getting into the more targeted attacks, that's where somebody with more specialist knowledge is going to come into play, right? And you're not going to stop them. They're going to get in regardless. But you're getting rid of the automated attacks. You're minimizing the easy attack vectors with these tools. So the other thing with this and why I like to show it off is that this also works because a lot of you, whether you go into sysadmin or not, you're probably going to be expected to make a website at some point since you have computer knowledge, right? And if you're making a forward-facing public website where people have to log in, maybe they can store credit card numbers, make sure that you're going for that HTTPS route where everything is encrypted site-wide. Like that example of Hotmail, where it went from HTTPS to HTTP, for instance, or no, that was Amazon. Your session then becomes unprotected at that point. So it's a little bit of extra effort to do the certificate generation and all that fun stuff, but it's more than worthwhile to do it. What if the hotel network has client isolation? It depends on how much you trust the hotel network. So, I mean, the thing is that if you're isolating your clients, whoever's managing the hotel can still see your traffic, I would assume. Depends on the hotel. You go to a mom and pop hotel where the kids set up a Linksys router to provide internet. That's one thing. If you have a nationwide chain where they have a lot of really intelligent people setting up the networks, that might be different. I guess the point is not necessarily for talking about client isolation and all that, but how much do you trust the people running the hotel? I tend to err on the side of caution if it's me. I will always connect to a VPN as soon as I walk into a hotel, basically. So the point of this, though, so we looked at the extension. This is basically a nice veneer on top of something like Wireshark, right? So if you go to install this extension, it's effectively Wireshark with a fancy layer on top of it to make it useful. And if you actually look at the prereqs for this tool, WinPCAP is a requirement, which is effectively, Wireshark for Windows here. Now there is a tool, an extension where you can counteract. I don't know if it's still active or not. I haven't looked in the past year or two, but there was a Firefox extension called Black Sheep, where it would look on the network to see if anybody was running Firesheep. So basically, it was a countermeasure for this snooping tool. So how do we counteract it? If you're a developer, if you're a sysadmin, use HTTPS site-wide. Don't skimp. Don't leave your about section unsecured. Just apply it to every single part of your website. 4 minutes in, we'll tell you this. Have your network be password protected, whichever one it is. Ideally, MAC filtered even, so limited to hardware IDs, even though those are spoofable as well. WEP has been shown to be very insecure. WPA2 is also fairly crackable now. Basically, don't broadcast easy targets. And then VPN, obviously, which is what we're talking about today. So VPN, you are accessing another network remotely, right? So I'm not on the network right now. I'm intentionally trying not to use a VPN to make sure that everybody else has resources, even though they bumped it up by 100 or so. But it is a secured method of accessing another network. So it is great for privacy. It's also great for managing your resources too, right? So I can work from home, like we are all working from home right now, whether you're in the dorm or elsewhere, but you could be working remotely, log into the VPN, and it's just like you're in the office, assuming you're in a business that is set up to handle that. Pretty much everybody right now is straining the limits of their company's VPNs and all their online resources for this. It tends to be fairly scalable as well. Basically, you're limited by the amount of IP addresses, by the amount of user certificates you would issue for this. It tends to be very robust, more or less. You're basically just like adding another Active Directory object into your network here. So what does this look like kind of as at a broad level? So here we have our company that I'm kind of mousing around over here. So we have web server, we have local PCs, we have a VPN server, you have your nice firewall blocking bugs off the internet. So here we have our separation. Now, if you're at home, you're going to be running some kind of a VPN client. Like for all of you, it's been Pulse Secure. I don't remember what it was last year. It used to be called something different, but I think it was like an Atheros maybe or something like that. But what's going to happen is Sonic Wall, thank you. Told you I'm getting elderly. The tunnel here is going to be your connection to this network. So effectively, you're bypassing a lot of the, you're going through the firewall. Basically, your connection's being permitted through the firewall. But basically, you have this secured, encapsulated tunnel through the internet to send your traffic locally here. And you're going to be treated like any other member on this network. Now, you could be partitioned into a different, segment to this network. Generally, you would have a segment of IP addresses available for people logging in remotely, but you're still considered a local user at that point. So you have two connections that are going to be made here. First, you're going to connect to the internet, right? So you have to connect to a network, otherwise traffic's not going to flow. And then you have to connect to the VPN host. So again, here, I'm going to log on to, say, Comcast or hotel Wi-Fi or Starbucks or however I'm getting online, and then you connect to the VPN host, and that's your VPN tool. Might be baked into Windows, depending on how you set it up. So some general steps for you here. First of all, you have to be online. Self-evident for you. Not self-evident for everybody, it turns out. So you have to have a network connection. Sell this to your management who doesn't think you need a good network connection. You're going to need a VPN server. So basically your VPN gateway, what's going to authenticate and authorize users in. We have to do some heavy lifting on the back end to make sure that people can connect, and then do the packet encapsulation, all that to secure all of your traffic. So what does this look like? Now with VPN, there are a few different approaches, a few different technologies for encapsulating your packets. We're not necessarily going to go into the nitty-gritty of all of these. Basically, you have IPsec, you have PPTP, LTPT. It's an option that you can pick, for instance. So if I go into the VPN settings here, I'm going to add a connection. Windows, here we go. Where's it at? VPN type. So PPTP, you have basically different options here. IKEV2 as well. So basically you get to pick what you want, and depending on your technology, you can pick a different one as well. So just gonna cancel that out. So yeah, here we have IPsec and PPTP. And the common, basically the idea here is that you have your original packet, your TCP IP normal packet that you'd send out to the internet, and then you're going to either encapsulate it completely, or you're going to basically encrypt the data payload. So whether you have a full tunnel, like a straight up VPN to VPN connection here, where our packet's going to be set up, and then we're going to add on basically kind of an extra header to get to the VPN server, encrypt everything and all that fun stuff. Yeah, so they're talking about isolating clients in the chat right now. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting topic. And then over here on PPTP, we also see effectively a new location that this packet's going to go to, and then some extra information for encapsulating it and encrypting it and all that. More so what we're interested in is how to actually create the VPN server. They're all more or less fine right now. So we have two different types of VPN that you can set up. You can buy a hardware-based VPN. So these tend to be router-based, so you could buy a very expensive router. I know that some of you work in IT right now, and you probably have seen extremely expensive VPNs, hardware-based. But we actually are starting to see routers nowadays, like the Netgear routers, are actually including OpenVPN. So it's still software based, but it's on the hardware. If it's a straight hardware device, it tends to be a little bit more ideal performance wise because that's all this thing is intended to do. It can be a router as well, but they tend to be expensive and not very flexible. So again, these are effectively single/dual purpose devices for a particular job. What's more common these days is software-based VPNs. It's very, very flexible and cheap, depending on how you look at it. It comes baked in with Windows Server. OpenVPN is free. There are many, many VPN solutions out there that you can set up. And, being software, it's also very highly configurable. So if I want to have multiple VPN hosts, if I want to, split up network paths between multiple units, use NordVPN. Yeah, basically, software is effectively more common, at least as far as I'm aware these days. But if you want a dedicated device, there are specific hardware devices as well. Yeah, that's a good point. And that's something that we're going to get to. You have to trust your VPN provider too. So maybe we can talk about that very briefly before, because we'll talk about that at the end too. The thing with VPN hosts is you need to trust the VPN provider. Okay, so again, when you connect to a VPN server, you are sending all your traffic to that network. I honestly don't know anything about I don't know anything about NordVPN personally. I haven't used it. I haven't paid attention to any of their news. But yeah, we'll talk about internet speed and all that too. Basically, if you trust this network, that's fine. But they're going to own that data once it goes over there. You have a connection to that network. For instance, when I connect to the OU network, I have to be comfortable with all my traffic being viewable by anybody at OU, right? Even if I am isolated. If you have your home VPN server, it's just going to be whoever is the admin of your network, which more than likely is going to be you. Word on the street is all major VPN providers are pwned. That would not surprise me. But if they're all hacked, then how are we going to sell ad revenue? Anyway, so with VPN requirements, we have a few other things too. So we have to be able to authenticate our users. In the Windows world, we're going to use Active Directory, clearly, or we're going to use certificates for something like OpenVPN. We need to be able to create an IP address range for them. So the client logs into a network, they need an IP address. You have to basically reserve a space for these users to connect to. We have to support encryption. This is usually going to come baked in with the server. And then we also might have to manage keys, which is going to go hand in hand with certificates. So there are some benefits here too. So if you ever have to sell the idea of a VPN, which in this day and age would be hard to think of anybody who would not appreciate a VPN, especially now that we're all forced to work from home. Basically, you have the benefit of being able to have many remote users. Obviously, we don't really have telephone charges or long distance lines as much anymore. We have Ethernet connections, and that's pretty much it, or fiber networks or anything like that. So we're going to be using software or hardware devices to broaden our business. The user base can grow very easily. It's very scalable. Nothing wrong with using Ethernet to handle that. So very, very useful. Now, some of the applications for VPN, the easy one is remote access, right? Working from home. We can all understand that, especially right now. But it's also good for site-to-site applications. So basically, we may want to encrypt traffic from branch A to branch B. Maybe we don't care about remote users. We might provide that facility. But if I have locations, for my business in 3 different cities, 3 different office buildings, something like that, we can set up a virtual private network where these are all interacting with each other like they're in one location, right? That can reduce the need for extra IT staff and all that fun stuff, or maybe motivate the need for more since you're handling so many users. But basically, think of it not only working from home, but let's connect our businesses together, right? So this big bad internet cloud can basically be a nice little shell around our secure connection here. And then our remote access, this is what we all know and love, work from home. Okay, questions so far? Everybody good? My guess is since you're all seasoned internauts at this point, you have probably had decent experience with VPNs. Dial up. Yeah. Where are my Net Zero fans at? All right, so now we get to talk about proxies and how they relate to VPNs. So proxies are an interesting aspect here. Net Zero is free if you know how to get it. Wink, wink. Yeah, I miss Net Zero as much as it was a pain to do anything with. I think I used to do, is it Ragnarok Online over Net Zero back in the day? That was painful. Sometimes you'd get a good connection and could go killing slimes very quickly. So I'm sure you have all probably also heard of proxy servers. There is a difference from that to VPN. So they both will conceal your identity. So the point of VPN and proxy effectively is to add privacy. But proxy servers are a little bit different. So they are still an intermediary. You're going to connect to the proxy server, and then any traffic that I send would make it look like it's coming from the proxy. Okay, so it is a literal proxy in name. But the difference is this tends to be unencrypted. So this traffic is not always secure. Here we have our lovely magic card here from the glory days of 4chan, before it became a very strange place. Proxy servers, they tend to be generally free, maybe inexpensive, more or less give the illusion of privacy, or you can mask your location again, so this is something you can also do with the VPN. For instance, if you wanted to buy a Steam game, if you're living in Germany, you could go to a different country's proxy, and then I could buy the game that I want. I lived in Germany for a couple years, and this is actually a fact of life. They will block games from the Steam store over there. Australia has a similar issue with games being listed. But it's one way that you could get access to, say, another country. Or what was the thing a few weeks ago, where if you wanted to watch Star Trek Picard, and you wanted to use your Amazon Prime account, but you had to go to Canada or something like that to watch it. Now, there are lots of public servers available. So there's this free proxylist.net website where they list out a whole bunch of proxies that are out there, including response time, anonymity. So here's just a list of IP addresses and locations for them. Now, again, the thing with these servers is you don't necessarily have any idea who's running them, right? So do you trust them to handle your traffic? Personally, I would not, but a lot of people like to use proxies to hide their identity. The other thing with proxies, too, is that this is really only good for browsing and very minimal things, because it's very, very easy to trace back who the original sender of the traffic is. So you can be behind 30 proxies. Somebody can still trace your path. It's just server to server to server. It's very easy to run a little trace route to see where the traffic originated, right? And there's even JavaScript Flash extensions where you can install them and just find traffic where it's coming from. And the other thing, too, is that you have to configure your browser to handle this proxy as well. And I'm going to leave the discussion of the Tor network for a different time, basically, but that's also a different way of browsing anonymously. In that case, you're using a special browser, a different network style, and ideally an anonymous way of browsing, too. So proxies, don't expect to have any privacy if you decide to use one. VPNs, on the other hand, are encrypted site to site. So the difference is not encrypted, or maybe encrypted, but not perfect. Proxy, we can see what you're doing. VPN, we just know that you have a connection, right? Everything is going to be hidden behind this encrypted traffic wall, and whatever encryption scheme your VPN provider is using is how it's going to be encrypted. whether it's SHA-256 or any of the other numerous ones out there. VPNs, depending on the setup, they could be expensive. So if you're paying somebody like NordVPN or any of the VPN providers out there, you are paying for use, whereas proxies tend to be cheaper. VPN can be slower because, again, you have this encryption handshake happening, right? I have to encrypt my data, it has to be decrypted, back and forth, and there's a little bit extra effort there. On the other hand, too, your VPN provider might log your activities. So let's say that I'm working and I log into my company VPN. You're still going to have a log of all the websites you visit and possibly block things on a block list, right? So you have to make sure that whatever you're doing, your VPN provider is somebody you trust, or you agree to what their what their use agreements are. All right, so then the last demos here is to install VPNs in a couple different servers. I will say that the Ubuntu one's going to be interesting. So for Windows, what we're going to do here, this is not going to complete successfully because the Google Cloud server is going to block the VPN port, and I'm not going to go through and change it. But basically, all we have to do is install the remote access rule, enable the direct access and VPN rule. It's not a feature, it's like an extra aspect of the rule. Run the wizard, and then we can look at some of these different things. So I will pop over now to my compute engine. I've got a demo server up. And I will say this, if any of you have been having issues with your password logging in, I have actually started having this issue as well. I would just almost create a new Windows Server instance at this point. I haven't been getting any responses on this particular problem. So, yeah, I know you were having that, but there was a couple other people that were having it too. And honestly, I started having it. The only thing I did was I installed IIS in that server last time. I restarted the machine. I changed the password, so I believe you all when you say there are problems. Yeah, if you're having vCenter issues, if you're having login problems, that's it. I wonder if it was IIS, or maybe it's just coincidence since we're both doing the same thing. But if you're having vCenter issues, I would recommend putting in a ticket with CTO. They are in charge of all the permissions. Like, I can't modify anything for you on that end. So, CC me on it if you're going to do that. Anyway, so we're going to add a role. Go ahead and get my notes up. Where did they go? Notes, hello. They're gone. I'd like my notes, please. So otherwise I can't see the slide and all the steps I have to do. All right. So we have a role install. You just remembered the password. RIP notes. Can we get an F in chat for the notes? All right. So we want the remote access role. And then we're gonna next through the features. Aw, my first F train. So proud. So role services, so this is the one that we want. And then we're gonna go ahead and install. This will take a hot minute. And then we're going to have to run through a little wizard. So then the other thing we're going to do, if you, I would almost recommend doing for yourselves if you want, is we're going to run through the OpenVPN setup. If you have any spare computing power at home, you want to set up your own VPN server. This is almost what I would recommend running through for that, if you want to set up your own VPN at home. I've had this running on a Raspberry Pi. Works wonderfully. It's very lightweight in terms of resources, so you could even use an older little micro device, spare desktop, anything like that. If you have a Netgear router, I'm not sure about some of the other ones, but the router software will also include OpenVPN. So that's an option as well if you want to do that. So we're good here. Configuration is required. So we're going to go ahead and click our little getting started wizard. If I remember right, clicking that doesn't do anything. I think I had to go in here. Actually, no, it was in here. Remote access. I don't know why, but clicking that link never pops up the actual thing that's supposed to pop up. Okay, so here we are. This is our remote access console. It's still kind of loading, but basically you have your server here, everything that we need. So there should be, that's still loading. There we go. So run the getting started wizard. Now we should get the window that we want. Okay, so we want to deploy VPN. All right, so go through and do that. Then we want to right click on our server and configure it. There we go. Next, we want a custom config. We want VPN access and finish. I'm going to start the service. So basically what this is doing is it's adding the remote access service. So you can see it in the services list. It's configured for VPN. So that is good. Still taking its time. All right. So now we should have a basic server up. Now a couple of other things we have to do. So we have to go into the properties here. We have some options in the properties list. Basically, we could set the security to be whichever one of these protocols that we want. So here I'd have IPsec with this LT2P or IKEv2. So it's just the different encapsulation methods. I could add a pre-shared key where this is my VPN key that I'm adding in. You can set all the different modes there. I'm going to go ahead and deselect that. The other interesting thing here too is that I can either use a DHCP server and maybe pre-allocate an address range, or I can create a static address pool of IP addresses. So for instance, I could say, let's start at 192.168.100, and then I would end at 192.168.1.200. So then I would have 101 IP addresses reserved for my remote users. Now, if I had 150 people trying to connect at the same time, we'd run out of IP addresses, right? So again, I'm not going to go through this necessarily because it's not going to end up working. Then the next step, let's see, so we did this. Yeah, so we got that. And then the last thing that you would do here, so I've actually got two links here at the bottom for Server 2019 if you want to run through this. Google Cloud is going to block the default port. I can just tell you that right now. So you're going to have to go around and muck about with port settings and firewall settings in 3 or 4 different places. But that would work. The next step for you would be to add the VPN connection here. So this is on my computer. I'd add a VPN. Say it's Windows, and then the connection would be like GCP, and then I would grab the IP address, pop it in here, let's leave it as automatic, and then if I wanted to put my username and password in there, life would be good. Again, I will guarantee this is not going to work straight up by default, but Windows Server is fairly easy to get a VPN server going. So that's basically how you would do it in Windows. Again, basically in that we looked at the general configuration pattern. You can set IP4, IP6 ranges, use DHCP, use static pools, all that fun stuff. So basically, and this little wizard would also walk you through some of the various steps as well. One other thing too in here, so I don't have Active Directory set up, so I would have to do this in AD if we were on our normal network. But computer management, if you want a user to log in with their Active Directory account, you would actually have to add an extra setting to them. So here I've got my list of local users. I'm going to right-click, Properties, and then there's this dial-in tab. if you want them to log in, by default it's this. You would have to allow access. Otherwise, this user is not going to have remote access to your network. Or you can deny them so you don't want them to log in. But basically, you're going to have to add an extra setting for all of the users that you want to have be enabled for VPNing into your network. So that is effectively VPN on the Windows side. More time to install the role than to actually configure it, well, at least in its most basic steps. Anybody have any questions on this guy? Otherwise, we'll go into OpenVPN and we'll see some true pain. I'll go ahead and stop my cloud instance here so that I don't run out of cache before the end of the lecture. All right, so unless anybody has any other questions, we will move on to Ubuntu and OpenVPN. So this is another service, open source. Can you allow network access as a GPO? Yes, and you can allow anything as a GPO. You can allow access to registry setting X through a GPO. Yeah, so I mean, honestly, this would be something that you would make as a default parameter in your add user script or something like that. Unless if you wanted people to not have VPN access for some reason. So yeah, it's something that you definitely would do. You wouldn't go through and do this for every single person. You would make either you would have it automatically be set, or you would script this out in some way. So for the Ubuntu install, then I'm gonna actually be following this link that I've got here at the bottom, just so that you all can see it. It's fairly long and extensive. Pop it over here. There is a decent amount of things we're going to have to do, so I'm going to jump back and forth. If you have done this in the past, I guess feel free to drop off and work on your in-class assignment. Otherwise, I will run through this to show you, how I would do it, basically. And again, the group time stuff is basically just going to be the next slide. One thing that we're going to have to do before we finish up the section is that we're going to change to port 443 for this VPN server. 1194 is going to be blocked by GCP. Even if you open up the VPC network in Google Cloud and you open up the firewall, it's still going to be blocked. So basically, this is going to be located in your server configuration and in any sort of certificates that you generate if you forget to change it early on. So what we're going to be doing here is I will put this like this. Got to move some things around on this screen, sorry. I'm not going to need this anymore. Yeah, so the other thing here too is that I've got two servers up and running. I got this guy and this guy. These are two Ubuntu 18 micro instances I created right before class. One's going to be the certificate authority, one's going to be the VPN server itself. Generally, it's recommended that you have two servers for this, mainly for security reasons. So if somebody breaks into my VPN server, they won't have access to the certificate authority. It'll be somewhere else, for instance. It is possible to run this on one machine. I have done that in the past. I was struggling with it this time around, so I'm just going to use two. And also, the fun thing is that I didn't set up like a storage bucket where I could transfer files to the bucket to various instances. So I'm going to pull files down to my local machine, then upload them elsewhere. So you're going to see lots of downloading, uploading, and all kinds of fun stuff. So, clean server. VPN server 2, because if this demo goes sideways, I've got server 1, which is going to work just fine. All right, so on the server, it's on the right. So if you get lost in which server is which, up at the top, this is VPN. This is certificate authority for CA. So on the server, I'm going to install OpenVPN. And yes. And then on both servers, we're going to pull down the tarball for easy RSA, or actually, yeah, This is going to be our VPN encryptor, basically. And all this what's going. So basically, I'm kind of dual wielding shell sessions here. So we're going to extract EasyRSA. So on my certificate side, I've got this EasyRSA. Let's get rid of the tarball so I can tab a little bit easier. And this one's still up and running. Take your time. Actually, while that's going, we can get started with the certificate authority configuration. So this one, I'm on step 2 now of the guide, basically. So on your CA machine, go into here. So go ahead and go in there. We're going to copy over the demo variables. And then we want to edit them. So the first thing it says is for generating certificates, we need to change, basically, we need to uncomment these and then change basically who's issuing the certificate. So we can set this to be Michigan, set this to be Rochester, organization, CSI3670, and then class. Let's leave it at that. We'll leave the email alone. This is not really doing anything other than saying who the certificate's coming from. All right, so it doesn't really matter for this use case. If you had a real company, this would be a little bit more important. Okay, so that's good. So we're going to save that. Now we're going to initialize our PKI, so our public key infrastructure. So there's this executable in there, which we're going to be running quite a bit. So we created that. And then we're going to build up our certificate authority. We're going to build it with no password so that we don't have to worry about password authentication or basically having to re-enter it every single time. Okay, certificate authority is in place. We have a private key. Life is good. Okay, so now back to our VPN server. I'm going to go fast just because this is going to take a little while to get done. And I lost my copy and paste here, so let's copy this, put it over here. No. Put it over here. Get that. So it's the same file. And we're going to unzip this guy. Remove the tarball. And then we have our VPN server setup time. Okay. So now we also have to initialize the key infrastructure over here. So let's go into our directory. So EasyRSA init PKI. So that's created. Now we have to generate our server. So let's run this again. Gen rec. So now we're in like section 3, I think, of the guide. Server, no pass. Can't load. What have I done? No, it's probably fine. It doesn't work. That was the step that broke. Okay, so we generated our server certificate and key pair, so that's good. Now we need to transition this over to the etc directory for a config file. So let's copy this file. So PKI private server.key into our OpenVPN directory. And now this is where the fun begins because I have to download this and upload it over here to the certificate authority. So basically I'm going to be passing keys back and forth so we can start encrypting things up. So I'm going to download this. And again, I've got to do a fully qualified path. So this is EasyRSA-3.0.4. I'm going to copy this for later use. And what do we need? It's PKI rec/server.rec. And this is going to go up as 1, so it's going to be a pain. Okay. Let me do some cleanup here really quickly, because otherwise this is not going to be fun to download and rename everything. It's almost like I did this demo already. Look at all the crap in my downloads folder I haven't cleaned out. Alright, so let's get rid of all of this stuff. Go away. Now, let's download it again. So why not? PKI rex server .rec. All right, so we got that. Now over here, we're gonna upload it. And downloads, I want server.rec. At least uploading's easy. So it's gonna go into my home directory over here. So basically now we want to, am I in the right spot? So we're gonna import it. So easyrsa import rec. And this is in my home directory, server.rec, called server. Successfully imported. Cool. Now we want to sign this thing. So we want to go easyrsa, sign rec, server, server. Yes, we want it set. Yeah, it's a good point. Without a common name, some browsers won't trust it. That's fair. I'm doing this the least, or the quickest way. You'd probably put a better common name in there. Right, so we have our cert, so that's good. And now we want to download this guy and move it back over to our other servers. So, download. It's the same location because it's same username. PKI issued /server.crt. So that's our server certificate. And we're also going to download our certificate authority certificate, ca.cert. So we got that, And now, back over here, we're going to upload both of these guys. This is where it can get a little bit confusing. So on server.crt, we also want ca.crt. So these are both in my home directory. And now we want to move them into the VPN directory. So sudo cp. So do this nice little copy shortcut, crt, comma, ca.crt, put it in etc, open VPN. All right. So now we look in etc, open VPN. We see our various certificates and our keys. So we have everything we need in there so far. Now we're going to do our key generation, basically. So depending on how Google's feeling, this is either going to take 1 second or 20 minutes. I've done this a few times already just to run through the demo, and one time it literally breezed through it, one time it took like 5 minutes to run. So basically it's generating the key that's going to be used between during the handshake process and what's going to be used to encrypt things. So, oh, there we go. Not too bad. You could change this to have a stronger key as well. So this is a 24D8 sized key. Not too bad. Okay, so now we need to sign it. So open VPN, gen key, secret, ta.key. Alrighty. So now we have to move this over. So ta.key into etc, open VPN, pki, dh.pem into open VPN. Okay, so we have our certs, we have our keys. Now we're going to generate stuff for clients. Well, actually, we're going to do some configuration, then generate stuff for clients. Okay, so still on the server. Let's make a directory for our client configs. So I'm going to do that. No such file. Oh, I forgot the -p option. This is going to create both client configs and keys. I'm going to chmod it to 700. Okay. And where do we modify the server? Because we want to do this. One second. Oh, we'll do that later. Okay. So, this is now step 4 in the guide on the link. I'm going to call this not client 1. I'm going to call it something else, just because OpenVPN doesn't like you having multiple clients with the same name. So I'm going to do EasyRSA genrec. I'm going to call this GCP client, no pass. Leave the common name as it is. And then we're going to create or copy over. It's going to be GCP client.key to client configs keys. And now we have to pull down the rec file, and we're going to send it over to the certificate authority so that we can get that signed. Oops, I lost my copy and paste. Easy RSA 3.0.4. And we want GCP client.rec. Yeah? Yeah. We have to bring it over here. GCP client. Okay. Now we're on the certificate authority. So I'm going to import that. EasyRSA import rec. And this is going to be in my home directory. So basically, if you are following along, I'm renaming everything client 1 to be GCP client. If it's client by itself, you want to leave it as is. So now we have to sign it. So EasyRSA sign rec client GCP client. Yes, we're going to sign it. Common name is GCP client. And now we're going to pull this cert down, pull it over to the VPN server. And forgot to copy and paste this. I think this might be the last time I need this, so I'm not going to bother. And then I'm going to bite my tongue because I probably am going to need it. GCP clients.crt. All right. Back over here onto the VPN server. We want the cert. So that is now up. Okay, and now we want to move this into the client configs location. So GCP client.cert, move it into client configs keys. And we also want to put our trusted authority key in there too. So put ta.key and client configs, and bring the certificate authority cert over as well. etc openvpn ca.crt into client configs and keys. All right. Hopefully everybody's following along. So all we've done so far is we've generated certificates for the server, for the certificate authority, and for a single client. So right now we're going to configure the OpenVPN service. So we have to get it set up for how we want it. Looks like we're about a third of the way through the documentation too. So here we're going to get everything set up. So clear this out. We have to copy over the kind of the sample config file from the documents. So user share doc / openvpn examples sample config files server.conf.gz. So that's basically the an example of what a server configuration file would look like here. OpenVPN. And then we're going to unzip it. So let's make this a little bit bigger because we don't need the certificate authority, I don't think, anymore. All right, so I'm going to unzip this guy. It's in gzip format. It's not tar.gz. etc openvpn server.conf. And we're going to do some config changes. Server.c does not exist. Server.conf, however, does. All right, so again, basically just following the guide verbatim, except we're going to change the port and the protocol as well. So we want TLS auth. This should be uncommented, so life is good here. We also are going to use AES 256, but we're also going to add on auth SHA 256. And then we want to find DH. So this is actually going to be, oops. It's not dh2048.pem, we created dh.pem. Then we're going to find the user, uncomment the group, uncomment the user, and see that. So that's the standard steps in the guide. We are also going to adjust the port in the protocol, so that's optional if you're looking at the guide. So port default is 1194. Again, a lot of firewalls will block this by default. So we're going to change this over to 443. Many times UDP VPN traffic will also be blocked, so we're going to use TCP traffic as well. And then we're also going to do this explicit exit notify change as well. So this has to be 0 if we switch over from TCP or to TCP. All right, so that's all we have to do in there. So OpenVPN is reconfigured. We're going to have to restart it later. Oh, we haven't started it yet, so it doesn't really matter. All right, so configured server.conf, fairly straightforward in there. We also now have to change the IP forwarding. So we're going to edit syscontrol.conf. We want IP forwarding for IPv4 to be enabled. So we will change this to 1 instead of 0. Save that. We're going to restart, or basically reread this configuration file with the syscontrol command. We see IP forwarding is now there, so that's good. If you are not using GCP, basically what you have to do is figure out what your Ethernet card is for the default path. If you're on GCP, it's going to be ENS4. Depending on your network card, it might be named something different. Basically, you just need the name of what your Ethernet card is. So for this, we have some UFW rules, so that's our firewall. I'm actually going to do something that I don't normally do. I'm going to open this file up in Nano. So this is etc UFW b4.rules, because these are going to be applied basically before the UFW rules get checked. And the reason why I am using Nano is because I'm going to copy and paste from the internet. And when I copy and paste in Vim, it will automatically indent because I don't have the setting turned off. Oh, Brandon, I'm disappointed in you. Not the most popular. Anyway, so when you copy and paste it in here, you don't get that horrible indenting. I will agree that Emacs is nice, but I just don't have the double jointedness that would facilitate that. Excuse me. Again, allergies are running wild over here. So what you have to do if you're following the guide, change this W1P1. So this is the original Ethernet card. It's ENS4, I think it was, right? Yeah, ENS4. So basically just, yeah, it's fun when I know who you are in the chat. I can call you out. So yeah, we're going to modify this. So this basically would change the firewall rule. And we also have to modify the default firewall rules too. Let's see default, so UFW. Since we enabled forwarding, we have to change it from drop to accept, because by default, UFW is going to drop forwarded packets. So we're going to accept this. And then we have to allow the ports. So again, if you're following the guide, it says 1194 over UDP. We want 3. Why am I spacing on this? 443. Yeah. 443. So sudo UFW allow 443/TCP. So, Mr. Firehead, I noticed that AutoMod caught something that you tried sending for stripping was in the term. Add permitted term stripping. Got blocked as a sexual reference. I don't know if you put a command in or if you were just copy and pasting an emote or something like that, but yeah, that's kind of funny. Anyway, it's more fun to reference you all as your usernames versus your real names. Anyway, so we allowed 443 over TCP. We're also going to update this to allow OpenSSH, even though it should already have that. Interestingly, it doesn't. They're going to restart UFW and have it reload everything. Yes, it's not going to kill my connection, so we're good. One thing that I will mention too, so if you go to do this step for copy and pasting the before rules, make sure that you actually put them in the spot that it shows here. So like here's the top of the file, and then it has their copy and pasted rules. If you put it further down, it will actually break the configuration. So just make sure that you put it in that spot. Otherwise, it's not going to work. You're going to get an error when you do the UFW enable step. Okay, so firewall updated. Now let's start the server. Sudo system control start open VPN at server. So we're actually going to have this load basically the server.conf file. We'll see when we check its status. Status open VPN at server. It is running. Everything is good. You also, if you want to do an extra check, you can check your IP tunnel. So IP ADDR show tunnel 0. You see that we actually have a tunnel into our network that's been defined. And now we're going to enable it to start after reboot. Enable OpenVPN at server. All right, so OpenVPN's running. Step 8. So now we have to create our client configs. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a base for it, and then we're going to basically issue certs. And then I think we're pretty close to being done after this point. So what we're going to do, so this is on the OpenVPN server still. So make dir-p, find configs, files. We're going to copy over an example base config, doc, OpenVPN, examples, sample config files, client.conf, and put it in base.conf. So I'm going to create a basis for these files. Then we're going to edit it with Vim. With Vim. Or Emacs. Emacs all allowed. So what's going to be important in here is that we update the port and the protocol, because otherwise it's not going to know how to connect. And then a lot of the settings are actually going to be similar to what we did before. It's just before we did it on the certificate authority, and now we're doing it on the VPN server. So remote. We're going to change this to the IP address of the VPN server and the correct port. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this down. Where is it at? Interestingly, all my servers appear stopped now for some reason, even though I can clearly say that they're up. All right, VPN server is this guy. Paste that in. This is on 443. So that's our remote server. And change it over to UDP, or sorry, TCP from UDP. So we will comment that guy out. We're also going to downgrade privileges. So uncomment user and group, nobody, no group. And then we are going to actually comment out these guys because we're providing certs and keys later on. Also going to comment out this TLS auth line. Oops, didn't want to do that. Comment that out. And then we want our cipher to be set as before, so we're all talking the same language in terms of encryption protocols. And then we're also going to add in this key direction 1 parameter. Otherwise, the VPN is not going to work. I'm going to skip adding the commented outline since I'm going to connect to the Windows client. If you're connecting with a Linux client, you'd have to set like the script security to up and down stuff. Okay, and then that is that. So now we are also going to nano a maker script because I'm just going to copy and paste it. Okay, so I will give nano some positive vibes here. Although I think what Joe is the preferable text editor if you're doing non-key bindings. So I just copy and pasted the make config.sh file. I didn't have to make any changes. Let's go ahead and make it executable. chmod 700, client configs, make config. So that is good. And now we are going to generate our client config. So after all that, is this all leading up to this step. So sudo /make config, and I'm going to say GCP client. So this is going to make a .ovpn file in our files directory. So you actually see it right here. This is what is going to be downloaded onto my machine. So let's download. I knew there was one more time I had to put the path in. /toast client configs, right? Client-configs/files/ GCP client.ovpn. All right, so I've got this. You actually see, since I'm on Windows, I've got the OpenVPN extension. I have downloaded the OpenVPN client onto my machine already. And to install this in Windows, all you have to do is put it in the program files OpenVPN config directory. So let's go ahead and do that. Bring this over here. So you can all see my disgusting downloads folder, which is honestly mostly full of your homework assignments. And various flavors of Raspbian images. All right, so I've got my .ovpn file here. I'm going to put it into my program files, OpenVPN, config. And here we see a few different ones that I've done. Continue. So I've got my client there. Last but not least, we need to run OpenVPN. You have to run it as an administrator, otherwise it's not going to work. So then you see here, right click, we see GCP client. Connect. And we have an IP. We are connected. We see traffic happening. Did the stream die, or are we still good? Basically, what we have now is, okay, cool. I just realized I was changing networks when I did this, so I wasn't sure if I was going to kill the stream or not. I'm connected. I have a VPN tunnel up to Google Cloud right now. Right? You could do this on any device that basically runs, that can run the OpenVPN server. So that was, honestly, I'm surprised it worked. Usually I screw that up halfway through and just kill the VMs and start from scratch. But one thing that I can show you, let me dip off of here. So assuming we're still good, get out of there. So this file is actually human readable. So let's say that you wanted to change the port. VPN, config, and this guy, edit with Vim. One of these days I need to remember to set my font to something reasonable. So this is actually just a straight up config file. So if you wanted to change a different port, change the IP address, you could just do it right in there. Now, if you're changing encryption schemes, if you changed a password or anything like that, you're gonna have to regenerate this. But basically, this is straight up text readable config. All right, so if you change things on the server side, more than likely you'd be able to modify that. So assuming we're happy with that, again, this guide is for Ubuntu, but they have many different flavors for different operating systems. I've been pretty happy with this the DigitalOcean write-up. It's pretty straightforward. But again, it's definitely something worth setting up if you have the spare computing capabilities set up for yourself. Pretty honestly trivial once you run through it. Well, not trivial, it takes a little bit of time, but it's not too bad. So, with that, we basically have 2 more weeks of class, and then your presentations start. So we're probably going to have 2 more classes, 2 more labs is going to be my guess. So this says by tomorrow night. I set it to Saturday night. I'm reminding you because that's my job as the professor that I have to remind you of your deadlines. So basically, I'm looking for a plan of action, status report, checkpoint task, whatever your preferred method of group management is, whether you guys are agile, doing the waterfall method, or Scrum, or all that fun stuff. Obviously, I didn't tell you to do that, but basically, what's left on your project? What are you going to accomplish by class on Tuesday to move that towards completion? Again, you should have started by now. If you haven't, start it. If you have started it, if you guys are done, great. Add some more stuff. Throw things at the wall method. See what sticks. I love it. You need a new group member because yours prefers Nano. Sorry, Justin, you're gonna have to handle that yourself. I can't really break up groups because of religious preferences for text editors. But basically, I just want you guys to keep in mind that you have to move this forward about how the final will work. Let's start with the last one. So if you're writing your entire web app in Nano, I will leave that to your group dynamics to solve. Yes, so the final will be online. It's going to be basically a Moodle exam. So I will, more than likely, I will make it live during probably like the whole day of the final exam. I will impose some restrictions where, well, not restrictions, but basically I will remind you of the plagiarism guidelines and all that fun stuff. Keep in mind if you copy and paste, I can see formatting from various websites. I'm not too worried. This is going to be a slightly different final than the midterm. It's not something I would worry about nearly as much, basically. It's going to be mainly short/long answer. There will be less questions, and yeah, I'll provide more information in the near future, basically. But yeah. The takeaway is don't plagiarize, basically. I went through that once. It was one of the most painful experiences of my teaching career, so it was bad for the students and it was bad for me. Yes, I will give you, it'll be the same thing. I'll give you what you have to study. Just because we're online doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, life has to be difficult for you. How many cheat sheets do we get? Did I set it for the wrong date again? It's due Saturday. Yes, this coming Saturday. So I'm gonna update this date right now. So I started using the date picker instead of just putting the date in manually, so that's my fault. So yes, this Saturday. It's a in-class assignment, so you shouldn't have 2 weeks to get it done. In terms of cheat sheets, you can use your best judgment. You don't have to turn them in. I'm not gonna make you sit there with your camera on, basically, so don't worry about that. In class stuff. Today is what? 26, so it's due the 28th. Seriously, I know how drop downs work. Ugh. Okay. There we go. Your update can be that you have everything left to do, you have one thing left to do, you have to fight with your teammate because he uses Nano. I mean, it could be whatever. Again, consider me somebody who just wants to make sure that you're thinking about getting it done. Um, if you leave it to the last day, your stress is going to be enormous. My goal is to reduce your stress and your anxiety about these things. And I'm not trying to micromanage this, I'm trying to make sure you keep it on top of your head. And you can hate me for that, or you can like me for it, but really, it's kind of my job to make sure you guys get these things done. So, with that, that's pretty much everything I've got for you here. So, VPN, worthwhile to set up. And other than that, any questions remaining? Anything I can talk towards? What's my VPN of choice? I like OpenVPN personally, um, mainly because I haven't really messed around with too many of the other ones. I don't have too much experience with the paid for versions other than using them, um, because everything I've done, everything I did when I was working was more as a developer slash project manager, so I didn't get into the purchasing of VPN stuff. Since I've joined academia, everything's been open source and free for me because I don't want to pay for an open VPN or a VPN licensing type of thing. So OpenVPN's great. I like it a lot. Do you guys have any other suggestions for them? And maybe other open source technologies? Soft ether. That's true. What's the neat. What's that new one that people are recommending? Because there's shoot, there's a new VPN service everybody's loving on Raspberry Pi forums at least. Hmm. I'll have to look that up because there's a new X. Yeah, so if you need more GCP credits, just email me basically, and I can get them for you. They've been very liberal with credit assignments around this time. So, but yeah, just drop me an email if you have any issues. And again, if you're having issues with vCenter, if it's something I can log in and solve, definitely let me know. If it's something with authentication to vCenter itself, I know people have been having issues. That's going to have to be a ticket to the CTO people. I'm guessing they've been doing some stuff in the background while they've been changing over sysadmin jobs. Yeah, PyVPN is nice. It's basically a one-line install for Raspberry Pis. I've used that too in the past. But it's basically OpenVPN. Nice fade in. Sorry, Chris, I can't hear you. No, it doesn't matter. You can have them wherever you want. Honestly, that was the whole goal of having multiple sources of virtual machines. Put them wherever you want, as long as you can show your demo. Come project demo day, I'm happy with it. So, yeah. Alrighty, well, I will see you all next week, and have a wonderful weekend. And stay healthy. Bye-bye. Ending soon.